Here we go. SimCity being played perfectly well offline. I pulled out my internet connection, just let it run. You can't start a game offline, and you can't go from one city in a zone to another while offline, and about every 20 minutes it seems to make a check to the EA servers, which will pull you back online. Now, this isn't caching of local files either. The computation has to be going on here. I can start this game offline, and you see I haven't long started. It's a rubbish city. Plonk down a couple of wind farms, water here, a few other bits and bobs. Just let it run. Completely, you can zone whatever you like. Just put some totally inappropriate. No. Do what you're told. You can basically do whatever you like, to be honest. Game doesn't seem to do anything if you zoning and stuff. It all worked perfectly well. Yes, this is awful. This is an awful design layout. I'm aware of that. I'm doing it just to prove the point. Okay, to my point. Electronic Arts made a big thing of saying that the game is mostly run server side. A lot of the computation, far too much of it. Now, a website called Kokatu today revealed that they ran a game for 19 minutes. Totally with the internet connection actually unplugged. Now, I've done the same thing here. I've unplugged my internet connection, and I've got to 40 minutes. As I mentioned at the beginning, there's a couple of things you can't do. You can't swap from one city to another, and some of the global market things don't work, and various other bits and bobs. But you can certainly run for long periods of time completely offline. You can say everything. There's nothing you can't do on a local level. There's nothing you can't do. Now, this really isn't in line with what Maxis representatives have been telling us, which makes me just wonder whether they know what they're talking about. This entire city was built offline, and I can, if I speed it up, things will, here things are growing over here. Look, they're building up these all entirely off. Everything happens offline. They'll find your Sims will find jobs. They'll zone areas. All the needs. Everything. There's nothing that doesn't happen. We're told that all this computation happens server side, and it clearly just doesn't. That's not true. Some, I'm sure, does. But we're told that most doesn't, and the game cannot be run in single player mode. If you don't want to change zones, and the only reason you'd want to change zones, well, there's two. A, if you really wanted the multiplayer aspect, which I know some people do. In fact, it quite excites me. If the global market actually worked, which it doesn't, then that would excite me as well, and I would be happy to run it. Or because cities aren't big enough, and you want to run more than one city, because these, this is barely a small village in size. So to build up the amount of structures that you'd need to run a city, you'd probably need one of those, at least 5 of these, to make a sort of city size area. So so if this was big enough, you'd just run the game like this. This would be a perfectly good single player game for me. Let's say Kokatu.com, and I'll link to the article below. The guy managed to get run 90 minutes. I've managed to run nearly 40, although the other 3 times it clicks out almost exactly 20 for me, which makes me think that there is a call to the server every 20 minutes. The fact that it's so regularly 19 or 20 minutes makes me think it has nothing to do with an event or action in the game. It is in fact a pre-timed serve to caller, call to the server from the game, which it does every 20 minutes. And once, because I was perhaps doing something and I interrupted it because I was in some screen or other, it didn't call, so I got 2 blocks of 20 minutes, making my 40 minutes. And by then I had half the city built. I was thoroughly enjoying myself. And the game didn't crash. I just got the message saying you're no longer connected to server. When I connected to the server, the game carried within 5 seconds. The game was working again. I sync things through Steam. Whenever Skyrim finishes, it says syncing through Steam. It can take a few seconds up to a minute or so, even though my web connection often goes at 8 megabytes a second. It works no problem whatsoever. Sorry about that. So I'm not sure what that is. So there's a couple of points here I want to raise before I turn this off, because I don't want to actually run this one for 40 minutes. Firstly, I'm not going to accuse the Maxis or EA representatives of lying, but what they are saying isn't factual. This game runs perfectly well without a server. This is proof of it, and there are other people proving it now. There are more and more of these videos popping up all over the place, and where the games just work perfectly well without any interaction with the server, which makes me think that, are we being lied to, or were the people saying these things just misled because they're not tech enough to understand that this is the case? Is this an accident that we can do this? Did they turn down the frequency of the server calls when, during launch, because there was a problem with server capacity, so they decided, rather than call server every 30 seconds, let's reduce it to 20 minutes, half an hour, or whatever they did, because that will reduce our load on the service and get some more happy gamers, because there was a lot of trouble last week with that. I don't know, that's pure supposition, I don't know. Thirdly, and the last thing I'll say, is the game doesn't actually work, and this is a big problem. Once you get to mid-game and end-game, once a city is 8, 10, 12 hours old, all sorts of problems come up. If you've got two crimes going on at the same time, all the police from all the police stations go to the one crime and ignore the other. Same with fires. If you try and transfer resources between one city and another in a zone, for some reason, even if your capacity is ample and the transport network is as big as it can get, there seem to be artificial limits that don't work. Your residents will get lost and stuck running around in circles. You'll get traffic jams where there is nothing causing the jam. You get routing areas where cars take either longer routes through crappier roads or the opposite and totally ignore your new superhighways and cause huge jams. The jams then won't move at all. You basically have to delete the roads and stuff because the game just grinds to a halt. The synchronization required for multiplayer with more than 3 or 4 players is amazing in its complexity and its unworkability. If one player falls behind in his building schedule and doesn't provide you with enough power or doesn't take enough of your sewage, your city will die a slow death. Comes to the point where you need to take over their cities when they're offline if you're in a growth stage, or just stop and go and play a different city yourself, which some people may enjoy doing. That may be the way some people envisage playing the game. I'm pretty certain it's not the way that many people envisage playing the game. Global market doesn't seem to work particularly well. These are all, I'm not going to talk about DRM, I'm not going to talk about always online requirements, I'm not a big fan of those, but if there was some purpose, if the global market worked, I would live with that, but it doesn't. The game mechanics don't work, the logic from mid-game onwards is severely flawed in many different ways, not just route finding, and the Sims aren't modelled as Max has said they are. They'll come out of any house, go to any job, and go back to any house at the end of the day, completely different house, then go to a different job the next day. You can create cities with no commercial or industrial zones where everything works just fine. The list goes on and on and on. It's just huge. The game won't break to the point of view it will crash, but from actually trying to enjoy modelling social behaviour in a real city environment and anything like reality, once you get to sort of the 4 to 6 hours, depending on how fast you play, the game will crash. It will cease to function. One of these errors, one of these bugs, will mean whatever suspension of reality you've got going on in your mind will be totally destroyed. Maybe patches can fix it. I'm not asking for a refund. I've loved Maxis games. I'm not a big fan of EA, but this is primarily a Maxis game. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not just blame EA. Max has got a good track record. Let's hope they've got the chutzpah to decide to fix this. And also, how about a bit of an explanation? This game can be played offline. Up till now, I'll accept that you may be an error. If you persist in telling us it can't be played offline, when it absolutely 100% can, and for very long periods of time. We talk 40 minutes is, you get half a city developed. Then if you persist, then you are lying. It's a 100% guaranteed, cast iron, solid, gold lie. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt now. you've been misled by your tech people. But if you persist in that line, then, as this video and the other videos now being made prove, you are lying. Don't lie to your customers, please. Signing off.